All right, good morning. Hey, how's everybody doing? Eric Milch here with Dealer Teamwork, the interview series. We've got a great episode for you today with one of my oldest and dearest friends in the industry, Bill Playford. It's great to see you, buddy.
Good morning.
Great to see you. So we've only done a few of these so far, so we're just getting the hang of it and getting the format down. But yeah, no rules basically. But we just wanted to make sure we are reaching out to again some of our really good friends in the industry. Obviously, you had to be on that initial list. So let me give everybody my take on Bill. So let me see if I got this right. Born and raised in Michigan, right? You went to school out there. You went to TCU, right?
For grad school, yep.
Yeah,
In Texas.
down in
Not
Texas.
Michigan, though.
And from what I've always understood, and this is something I've always personally been impressed by. It looks like you've only ever had 4 jobs after college. Is that
Yeah,
true?
that's mostly true. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's respectable. No job hopping. So
Yep.
people obviously
Kind of a rarity.
people obviously like you where you work, and you do a good job.
Part of it is you got to start by working with yourself or with a partner, and so it's a lot easier to not get fired for having a big mouth.
Bill's a rare friend, from my perspective. Again, somebody I've always felt very, very fortunate to be connected with, and to know. Just an all-around great guy, super smart. I love the way he thinks, and something that I found a long time ago, and I was looking at some other info in your bio that I remember seeing a long, long time ago, and you had 2 quotes that you've got on your profile that I always stuck out because one of them is from Carl Spackler from so I got that going for me quote,
Which is nice.
yeah, laying on my deathbed, you will have total consciousness or whatever it is. So I always thought that because it's one of my favorite characters, and to see that I thought was great. And the other one I thought really perfectly fits you and the way that you always approach your thinking and your writing and just your overall philosophy in terms of it was a quote by Patton. Yeah, if everybody is thinking, everybody's thinking alike, nobody's thinking, or something like
Yep.
that. So I always like that, and I liked how it fit you personally. So with that, the first question I want to ask you is, do you believe there are secret government bunkers
Oh,
built into
absolutely.
the mountainside?
Just unequivocally. Yep.
So
Totally.
why is that? Tell me about it.
Well, so funny enough, and I think probably Joe told you this story, but we were driving through an extremely rural part of West Virginia, and it's really beautiful scenery. If you guys haven't been to West Virginia, it's actually very pretty there. People are super nice, but a little, but it's a really cool place. But we were driving along this just desolate mountainous area, and we see this just giant concrete garage door on the side of a mountain. And we're just like looking at each other like, what the hell was that? And so this is the part I don't think Joe does know, though, is so fast forward, 10 years, and I'm at my 20th class reunion talking to one of the guys I went to high school with who was in the military. And so he told me where he had been stationed over the years, and he mentioned being in West Virginia. And I'm like, so he starts describing what he was doing. And so lo and behold, he sort of confirmed the fact that there is this underground tunnel in this mountain. And that's actually how it started. My understanding is that it was an actual tunnel that they abandoned, for like a highway to go through. And
Okay.
so yeah, it's legit. So.
All right. So expanding on that even more, let's say there was a full-blown world apocalypse.
Mhm.
What would you do personally to prepare, or how would you respond to that? What would you do?
I'm already in a good spot. And they like to joke about my bunker because I got my nuclear fallout sign, but I live in a very rural area. I live on a chain of lakes. I have access to spring water and fresh water, and I only have like 3 neighbors and a marina across the street, and that's about it. So, but yeah, I think that's actually kind of, there's a good analogy going on here in terms of just kind of understanding your situation and what's going on right now. And I think some people are way overreacting, and some people are not reacting enough. But I think most of it just has to do with the fact that they're not necessarily mentally prepared for this. And I'm not scared of any sort of apocalypse. Well, I mean, like if the second coming happens, I guess I'd be scared of that. But I mean, in terms of like nuclear Armageddon or, 28 days later scenario or something like that, I'm not really worried about that. What I'm worried about are people. People scare the shit out of me. And I think if we see the reaction that people are having, the amount of misinformation they're spreading, and just this general echo chamber of ignorance, that freaks me out. And so I didn't know this, but yesterday there was until like way late in the afternoon that there's this huge march on our capital in Michigan. And coincidentally, my best friend lives in Houston, actually texted me. He's like, what's going on at Sparrow? Like, I heard ambulances are being blocked in and all. I'm like, WTF, like what's going on here? And so I go to open the news and I see pictures of people like with hunting rifles and like tactical vests on and stuff like that. And, Eric knows I'm a card carrying gun owner. I believe in that right. But I was literally embarrassed by seeing that yesterday. That's completely irrational in my mind.
No, I agree with you, Bill, that the fear from my standpoint does in fact come from the people. Again, unarmed from a fact-based approach, more along that line. So that does scare me. So just shifting gears a little bit, tell everybody about your fascination with cars as well. It's something you and I have always enjoyed talking about. Yep. What's your favorite car you could buy if money was no object?
If money were no object, you like never ask like a car aficionado, like what era do you go from or what make or what have you. Like I think if I won the lottery and I had infinite money, first thing I'd buy would be a 67 Chevelle Super Sport 396. Oddly enough, it wouldn't be a Ferrari, it wouldn't be a McLaren, it wouldn't be anything really crazy. Just I've always wanted one, and I'm from a GM family. My uncles are a bunch of gearheads. My grandpa had just a whole host of awesome cars growing up when he worked for the factory. A couple like really super rare cars he got with like the name plaques and the whole 9 yards. It's pretty cool. So I just kind of grew up in that whole era of hot rods and modifying cars and wrenching on cars, and I've even worked in a factory and built parts for cars, in the summer times and stuff like that. So it's just really it's just kind of part of who I am, and I just appreciate everything about it. I appreciate the engineering. I don't like Ferraris, for instance, for the fact they're expensive, unlike the Paris Hilton set or what have you, or I guess the salamandering crowd, I guess, if you're modern 2020 times or whatever. But I just appreciate the engineering and the real, just the dedication of building a good quality product. And I think that's something that really fascinates me on a much deeper level, that somebody's actually putting their, kind of blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, into making something like that.
That's cool. That's a cool pick. And speaking of the car heritage that you mentioned between your grandfather and everything that you did, so out of school you did a lot of analytical work, analyzing companies, and it seems like your foundation has always been around the data side of things. So tell everybody about what your philosophy is, and more so your thoughts on the direction of where the industry is going now, adding in all this extra layer of data, but more so to the point, what's something that you're really excited to not see happen anymore because of all this? This is the catalyst. This is the catalyst for change right now. And this is the opportunity that, especially, you and I have talked about it. We need an opportunity to wipe the slate clean, and we kind of have it right now. So what are you excited to see not happen anymore?
So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think it goes back to, I think when you and I, because we were talking about this beforehand, audience, and so Eric, I kind of thought back to when we met, and I think why I wanted to come introduce myself to you is that you were one of the very, very few people who actually like sold cars with internet. Wasn't this just get them on the phone, hook them, like a BDC type scenario? Like you were like legit selling cars sight unseen to people, as much as the technology of the day would allow, and you were the only like a handful of people I knew that actually did that, and I was one of those people. So we're like, we're part of this weird fraternity who's actually done this stuff across the country and internationally, and but I think if we look back on that time and go, look, like technology was never the problem, and I think the one part for me, and this is going to be a real probably tangential answer you weren't expecting, like the slate clean part, as I think where people are going to realize is that it's never been a technical issue. It's always been a matter of a want, and it's a double-sided want. The customer has to want to do it. The dealership throughout the entire value chain of personnel has to want to do it in order for it to work. And that's something that I think you and I both implicitly know, and the people who've actually done this, is that you can get a customer all hot and heavy to buy a car online. They still may want to come buy the car face to face. Like, it's that comfort level. And when you get, if you've, like, I've sold, 6-figure cars, especially like in that range, like, you have people who are both ways. They're too busy to do it. They're like, just drop it off my office. I'll scribble things off. Just talk to Renee and she'll get you taken care of. Like, you have that set, but
Right.
then you have the other 99% who are like scared to death to do this, and they want to touch it, and they want to make sure that it's everything you talked about. And they like that sort of preconceived notion of going to the dealership, because that's what the previous 3-4 generations have done before them. So that's the part I think will be interesting, is that now that we've sort of forced the issue, like, now it's going to be interesting to see, like, actually how it works. And that comes to, limiting wet signatures and doing e-contracting, and states actually, this is the biggest thing that, that, again, people who've done this before realize that states have laws. There's a ton of different laws that govern how a car can be sold, and every state's different. And I mean, like, and I've worked with compiling documents. Like, I think I'd have to go back and look, but I want to say it's over 1,000 pages of legislative documents that were kind of bound up trying to get an idea of how all 50 states function. So some are similar, some are reciprocal, some are just completely doing their own thing. That's the stuff I'm excited about, because now all the barriers to entry are kind of gone. So it's something now we can actually almost finally see, like, the true desire to do it this way, and see the commitment level of both parties to make it happen.
Oh, great points. Great points. That comment you made about the wet signatures, I've been saying this for a while as well. I think this is an opportunity now for the system itself and the rules to finally be changed, because we have to. And it's not going to be on subjective opinions or political motivations or any other reason under the sun. It's more so now, it's just going to be because we have to accommodate this. And that's the part I think that's exciting. That, like I said, this is a new catalyst for us, for everybody to be, at least aware that those opportunities now could potentially happen, and try to change the way that we're operating in. Tell me about your philosophy too. I'm always curious to ask people this in terms of what's going on with just this fascination, again, for any professional, especially within our industry, to latch on to this online social celebrity status that everybody seems to chase. For some people, it's almost like a drug, but I'm not judging anybody for doing it. I'm just saying, what do you really think the motivation behind that is? What's your opinion on that?
We only got like 13 minutes left or something. So, it could be a lot of things. I think a lot of people are proud of their accomplishments. I think a lot of people in this business I met are actually very good people. I've met a lot of people who necessarily aren't quote unquote college material, and they were told that, and so it's kind of a way for them to let people know they made it. I think that's the component of it. I think it's a component of it. The idea of sort of like, publishing your day-to-day routines, and, I think that's somebody's trying to tap into, like, the whole social media influencer Kardashian lifestyle. And it's sort of, and that type of lifestyle, sort of like I was told about, how do you make a large force, or how do you make a small fortune horse racing, if I can spit it out. Right. How do you make a small fortune horse racing? How do you do it? Eric, you tell me.
Well, I think you're right on that.
A large fortune. Answer the question. So it's one of those things where, like, I think
you're right on that, in terms of, there is a validation element to it, which is absolutely fair. But I think there's that constant struggle for people, obviously, in terms of either call it a lack of self-awareness, or just, maybe just call it the other side of the coin, a lack of shame, whatever term you want to use, in terms of, where is that? It's not an on-off switch for some people. I've always viewed it more as a dimmer. There's times it needs to be turned down, and there's times it need to be turned up. I don't, like, for something like this. Let's take this example. This is not a self-serving type of purpose to do this. This is more of a response and a reaction to, again, what's going on right now. Personally, I viewed this as a great opportunity. Again, completely selfish, and self-serving from a certain perspective, that I wanted to do something different for dealer teamwork and for us to be able to, connect with the community, introduce, people to, other people to you, people like yourself, let people tell their stories, let people share their thoughts and opinions. And, we're somewhat yearning for a different type of content. We joke about it all the time. I constantly say, I think I'm at the end of the line for Netflix. What else is there? I've already ventured into, starting to watch foreign sections with, but that is part of the need. But,
well, let me expand on that, though. I think, there's also this, I'm trying to think when it started, but I really think, like, in the early 2000s, this whole, like, really fake it till you make it thing. And I think that's really what people have been programmed to do. They gobbled up all the self-help they can get. They've been, sort of anointed by one of these guru ninja expert trainers over the years. But I really think that's part of it, is this notion of, like, oh, you can accomplish anything you want. And honestly, that goes back to, like, our elementary school, right? Like, oh, you can be an astronaut. Eric, you're not 6'4", but you can be a pro football player. You're genetically blessed in other ways. Like, it's that whole notion of, like, we can accomplish anything. And I think that a lot of people are falling victim to that, have fallen victim to that. There's just a litany of names of people who have come and gone. They go to other verticals. They come back to a dealership. We don't hear about them anymore. So, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad or anything else. Just, it sort of is. But going back to this idea of, like, not being realistic and trying to, another one thing too, like, ride the coattail of others. I see that a lot over, like, you're somehow this notion of, I don't forget the trainer, but the one, there's a trainer out there, and he's an author and a bunch of other things. But, this idea of, like, you're sort of the average of your, 6 closest friends or some nonsense like that or something like that. So it's like notion, like, you have to get yourself into another circle of influence to gain influence. And there might be something to that, but I think it's really sort of that whole concept has sort of been molested now. I mean, that's the best we can say is, like, you're not, like, knowing people who are successful doesn't necessarily give you success. But if you learn from that, that's a different story altogether. And to go back to Eric's initial, patent quote, that's kind of what it comes from. It's sort of like, you have to be open to learning. And I think when you go through that process, and, Eric's a good example of that too. Like, we're always learning, always reading books, we're always sharing ideas, but we're always trying to prove each other wrong at the same time. And that's when you get a good group of mentors. If you're not the smartest guy in the room, like, they're going to tell you you're full of crap sometimes, and you're wrong. And hey, go read a book. Like, that's going to happen, but it makes you better. It makes you stronger. And I think this is going back to this whole auto-celebrity confirmation bias echo chamber, that people just think they're actually smarter than what they are. And it's a shame. And if you call them out, then you're a hater. You're like, oh, you're a bad person. But that's how we grow. And I'm not saying you just come out and be a dick or something to somebody. What I'm saying is that sometimes you got to fact check people and, like, hey, just take a look at this point of view. And that's what things have sort of devolved to today, is that people can't have a discourse. People can't have a conversation. It's an I'm right, you're wrong. Or, we have people who say, hey, my governor's gone too far, but my president, it's okay for them to delay my communist handouts because he wants us to put a signature on them. It's like, you can't have it both ways. Like, you either believe one truth or another truth, but you can't have both truths. And that's, you ask me my philosophy, like, that's it. Like, I'm out for, like, objective truth. That's what I wanted.
Oh, that's great. And what I love and respect about you, Bill, is the fact that you're that's your conviction, and you want to stick with that. And that's what I think is is respectable regardless of the side that you're on. And that friendly and educated type of conversation can still come from that without it being like, well, you know what, I'm going to block you and unfriend you, and
Right.
I'm going to remove you from my phone, and I'm going to avoid you at all costs at the next conference if I, So, stuff like that, which is just that I equate that more to a lower emotional intelligence. And you just can't handle real life situations. Then, like you said, falling back into that echo chamber type of scenario, which is not healthy at all. I gladly welcome all sides of because just as we love to have those conversations. I learn so much from understanding somebody else. I love to try to position myself more as a centrist, and there's some wax on the right and the left, but I try not to associate with either side of it. On certain issues, I'll fall a little bit right, a little bit left, but I'm not going to let it ruin my day in terms of I'm not going to talk to this person ever again about it. There's one other thing I wanted to bring up too, that it was, and this is more of the result. So you talked about those people in the industry that have actually started from really just new, or just as a young age, or just help build something, versus that person that comes into the industry and let's say you join a dealership that's got a 65-year successful multi-generational operational history, and then they fit in to a role that has already been defined, has been occupied multiple times over, has great processes, amazing operational excellence and leadership and accountability. And you take the right person into that, great attitude and effort, and just they shine. But yet all of a sudden, 18 months later, they leave. And again, as we've seen over and over again, now they suddenly want to be a consultant or a trainer, or whatever they want to call themselves. And it's almost like a false sense of security. I think that's a fair way to label it. And again, then they suddenly quickly realize that a lot of that success is, and again, I'm not hammering on anybody individually for this, but I'm talking about the self-awareness that should be at least afforded to that situation, to understand that's part of why it happened.
Right.
That's a little bit different.
Well, I think that, you and I were in retail during the last financial meltdown. This is my second. It's gone way better than the first. Actually, it's my third, because of 2001, when I was in, venture finance. That worked out swimmingly well during that time frame. So hence my job in automotive. But, but there's lessons that we learn. But I think a lot of the people that you're describing, they started 2010, 2011, like they started at the bottom of the trough. Yeah. Everybody had a meteoric career between then, because it was just things are bouncing back and getting to normal. And I think part of that self-awareness is sort of understanding that. I think that any good scientist tries to prove himself wrong. That's sort of where it comes from. Is that's a great
way to put it.
You don't like fact check yourself, or you go to Snopes because you just and I think if you want to have your opinion reinforced, you might do that. But I think if you want to scientifically look at something, you have to try to prove yourself wrong. That happened to me. Like I built my first lead scoring model back in like 2005, 2006. And, I thought it worked great, but it was based on the data I was getting from like the Great Lakes area. And so in my next career move there, I thought, hey, I'll just plug and play this in Texas. I mean, like there were so many things. I mean, some of it worked, but I had to recalibrate, had to make some adjustments. Some other variables I wasn't taking into account were more important. And like, okay, cool, I got this thing beat. So then we go into Georgia, and then it's just like, wait, people pay cash for cars, and like for real, like write checks, like so. You proved yourself wrong. I proved myself wrong, on these assumptions, and it forced us to make a better model. It forced us to constantly update the processes and our communications and tactics. Just realizing that we don't have it all figured out, and I think that's the key takeaway here, is that when you think you have things all figured out, you don't. And I think that comes with maturity. It comes from being the dumbest guy in the room sometimes. I mean, I just was listening to a podcast with Eric Weinstein. I don't know if you've ever heard him.
Oh, I've subscribed to him on YouTube.
Yeah,
He's
so it's like, talking about 14 dimensions of physics and all this stuff. And like, I'm just like, just melted my face off. And to hear this guy talk about other topics as well, the guy is very brilliant. So, even if you can't find those people in your life, like, you have to find those different resources. Just only focusing on automotive people, it gives you a very myopic view of the world, in my opinion. So again, if this is something for those kids who didn't inherit an awesome job or something like that, or a great department, but I think there's so much more to learn about business that will better inform your ability to be a good car salesperson.
All right, one last question for you too. I just want to make sure we get a good plug in for you. And so you're the vice president and co-founder of
a partner. Joe is the founder. He's not, but he started before I got there. So
who?
Joe Webb, my business partner.
Don't know him.
Never heard of him. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just real quick, describe what you see happening. With that as that change agent right now. In terms of what you guys do with your lead scoring, and I broke it down for Joe on his interview as well, and basically saying what you do, you guys just teach people how to talk to people a little bit better. Really super simplistic pitch, but share your thoughts on that. What's different for you guys going forward?
Well, I think there's a few things I think that separates us, and I think it really it comes from that experience, the fact that Joe sold cars. I've sold cars. I've sold cars in 19 different states personally. Everything from Mazdas to Mercedes and BMW and Chevys and Fords and pretty much everything in between. I think that's the only thing I haven't really touched is like a Rolls Royce or something crazy like that. But not to say I sold thousands of each of those cars, but I had a very wide breadth of experience, and that actually translates to our clients. And we've worked with people from Florida to Alberta, and kind of everywhere in between. And it's that perspective of the mega dealer, of the regional dealer, of the mom and dad dealer. It's that kind of accumulation of experiences, I think, that sort of pervades what we do. And the other thing is that we're very voracious researchers. We do a lot of, and I'm sure Joe mentioned this as well, but I mean, we're constantly studying different language patterns. We're understanding, email deliverability statistics. I mean, I'm constantly doing data dives into our dealership CRMs, trying to find different trends, different things. And it's because of that, it's very dynamic. So we don't go in and say, hey, it's like we just throw the Torah down on the desk and it's like, this is the way, like I did that just for you, Eric, or a Quran or a Bible or whatever your, holy book of choice is. But we don't just say this is the way like so many other trainers do. And we say like, okay, here are some foundational principles. We're going to lay down a foundation, but we're going to build on that. And we're going to make it about you and your customers and your market and the people that are going to be coming back to you in the future. And we try to constantly do that. So yeah, we do actually help people better communicate, but it's in a very, very informed way.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, always great to see you. I appreciate you and respect your all of your efforts that you do. It's a joy knowing you. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the years as well. And if anybody hasn't checked him out, check out Bill Playford at DealerKnows.com. Mm-hmm. You can see him online. Was it W Playford on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm never on Twitter anymore, but you'll still find my old tweets. But yeah, find us on DealerKnows.
Your blogs are constantly being published. Great writings. If anybody hasn't checked it, what Bill has to say on his blogs, he's one of the few people I constantly have contribute to my annual prediction call. Just always great stuff. Always a pleasure to see you again. Truly respect you and appreciate the time today. So keep it up, and look forward to seeing more great things from you and Joe and DealerKnows later this year as well. All right, buddy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wash your hands.